Today's conversation takes us into Indiana's 6th Congressional District, a district that spans the south side of Indianapolis, cities like Columbus, Shelbyville, historic Madison, and dozens of rural counties in between. It's a district where running as a Democrat has often meant swimming upstream, and where continuing to run in itself is a statement. Our guest today is Dr. Cinde Wirth. Cinde is a mother, a scientist, a teacher, and a business owner. She also is someone who understands policy from both sides of the equation, not just how it's written in Washington, but how it lands in classrooms and communities back home. In 2018 and 19, she served as a Congressional Legislative Fellow in Washington, D.C., an experience that sharpened her belief that federal decisions aren't abstract, they shape real lives. She first entered electoral politics in 2020 with a run for state senate, campaign disrupted by the chaos of COVID. In 2022, she stepped into the race for Indiana's 6th Congressional District, challenging then incumbent Greg Pence. While she didn't win, she made meaningful gains in several counties and helped keep Democratic competition alive in a deeply red state. In full transparency, our districts once bordered each other. I've had the chance to share stages, events, and grassroots conversations with Cinde, and I've seen firsthand her commitment to meeting Hoosier families where they are, not just when it's convenient, but constantly. Today, we're picking up that conversation right here. Cinde, you've run this race before. You've worked in classrooms, labs, and the halls of Congress, and now you're stepping forward again. For people hearing your story for the first time, let's start there. Why run again, and why now?
So thank you for that introduction. I'm a first-generation college graduate in my family. I come from working class roots. My grandmother was the lady at the bakery, worked every day of her life. So my dad and his brother came home from school, by themselves back in the 50s. My great-grandfather was one of the last horseback mail carriers in Bartholomew County. And I think for me, that's who I am. I am just an everyday person who grew up here in central Indiana. I recently completed a terminal degree, which means I went all the way through school. You can't go any farther. Because nobody in my family had ever done that. And I really believe that those are the opportunities that every kid should have available to them. And what I saw in my classroom when I was teaching high school, I was seeing my students and their families just stretched to the breaking point. And at the time, like in 2010, it was medical bills, low wages, rising rent, childcare costs or unavailability of childcare, food, utilities. And it's the same things that we are seeing right now across the 6th District, across Indiana, and across our nation, except for that these students that I had back in 2010 are now adults with families of their own, and they are facing the same struggles that their parents faced. And we can do better, and we know we can do better. And when I went to Washington, D.C., there were a bunch of reasons why I went, but what I found was how to write good policy that helps people. And that is the reason why I am running. I'm running because this experience that I had gave me the tools and the knowledge and the experience to actually make those changes and make it happen for people.
Indiana's 6th District covers a lot of ground: Columbus, Shelbyville, south side of Indy, Madison, and many rural counties. When you think about representing a district that diverse, how do you approach policy so it actually works for manufacturing towns, farming communities, and growing suburban areas alike?
So you're right. It is a big district. It's over 3,000 square miles. I've covered all of it many times over. What I'm finding is we do have some differences in rural and suburban and rural adjacent and urban areas. However, at the moment, what we're all facing across the board, everywhere I go, is affordability. We're facing a healthcare crisis. We have infrastructure issues. We have education issues. We have hospitals closing. We have schools closing. We have schools being underfunded. We have transportation issues. And we're seeing those from the south side of Indianapolis all the way along I-70 to Richmond. They did shrink the district in 2022. So it used to be 18 counties. Now it's only 11. So the furthest south that we go is Bartholomew County and then over to Union County. Those are the two furthest south that we go. But all of these things are common. And now we're adding into the mix data centers that are, because we've already seen our utility costs across Indiana, whether you're urban, rural adjacent, wherever you are, utilities have risen over 20% in the last 5 years. We're seeing data centers coming in to not only impact those utility costs, but also put at risk our water supplies. And they're being given these sweetheart tax deals for 50 years, 50 year of tax abatements. That's going to be my grandchildren and my great grandchildren dealing with these. I'm going to be long gone. The people getting the payouts are going to be long gone, but it's future generations that are going to pay the price. And so when I look at what people are facing, what I'm saying is what they're telling me. So wherever I go across the 6th district, it's the same thing they're saying. We're being squeezed. We're being squeezed on utilities. We're being squeezed on healthcare, prescription prices, transportation, utilities, housing, all of it. And we've had tools in the past that we have effectively used in the United States that address all of these.
The seat is currently held by Jefferson Shreve. When you look at his record and his public statements, what do you think has been missing? And if you were sitting here 4 years from now, what would success in your first term look like to you?
People want to talk to him. They want him to answer them. They want him to say, I see you, I hear you, I am working for you. And what I will bring as a teacher and a scientist is I'm not afraid to meet with people. I'm not afraid to sit down one-on-one. I'm not afraid to be in a room full of people asking me hard questions. I mean, I had high school students. you, unless you are a data center developer and you are in a room full of angry constituents, there is nothing worse than a room of high school students who every day, want to put you to the test. So I think that people are inherently good. I think people just want to be taken care of and they want to be able to take care of their families. I think most people do want to work. I haven't found anyone that doesn't want to have a job across all of these counties that I've been. So I think when we look at things like universal health care, and when we put that in terms of this is what this would look like, this is how much it would cost, people understand that. People are smart. And I think success would look like people saying, hey, she sees us, she understands us, and she's working for us.
You've talked a lot about how economic pressure shows up in everyday life for families. When it comes to things like wages, childcare taxes, and consumer protections, what are the policies you'd most want to push to help families in Indiana 6 breathe a little easier?
What I'm focused on are things that will help the working class. Our billionaire class and our one percenters, they don't need help. They don't have any idea what the struggle really is. I do know what it's like to raise a family on teacher wages in 2010 when wages were intentionally suppressed by power-hungry politicians. I have had no health care with a teenager the year before I started teaching with kidney stones. I know what that's like. I know when you're a parent and you're like, I don't know how we're going to do this. Those are the policies that I want to put in. Universal health care, I think, will help us financially all a lot. Living wages, that's something that we really need to pass. Finding ways to implement affordable childcare programs across the nation and incentivize that, I think that just makes good sense and good policy and helps everybody, be well taken care of. And I do think that we need to hold our big corporations accountable and we need to put the teeth back into our antitrust legislation. That has been weakened to the point where we are all being taken advantage of. And the case in point on that is when you look at somebody who works for a very large corporation and they say, well, I have really good health insurance. Well, that's because it's a very large corporation. They are keeping their wages low. They're also, you're paying for that health insurance, but they're getting a good deal on that. If we gave that same deal to everybody across the nation, we'd all be better off. And those are the kinds of things I look at. And that's how I look at it, is what's going to be the best and most cost effective for everybody across the nation, that we can take care of each other. Um, Religious and nonprofit organizations have a role, but we're seeing right now that religious leaders are saying, hey, we can't do all of this. We need policy. And when you have our religious leaders stepping up saying, hey, write better policy, we've lost the plot and we're going the wrong way.
You've worked in both health and education, so you've seen these systems up close. From your perspective, what practical steps should Congress take to expand affordable health care, mental health services, and lower prescription drug costs across communities like ours?
So we need to adopt universal health care. There's a plan for that. There are role models. It's nothing new. It is nothing that we have to reinvent. We just have to elect people who will work to get it done. It's something that I think over 60% of Americans polled right now really want it, and something like 15% really aren't sure what it means. So when we look at that, it's about getting the word out there of what it can do for all of us. Um, Conservative estimates put that private insurers take up 25% of our healthcare costs. So we're paying 25% of every dollar that we pay for healthcare for private insurers. Those costs would drop to 2%, those administrative costs, if we were on a universal healthcare program. And that's a conservative estimate. So that's a savings of $400 billion for all of us right away. Um, it also means that doctors and nurses would be able to spend more time with patients because they have less paperwork to file. And that right there is the best reason, besides the finances, because we all need to be taken care of. And I was at a function this weekend where I was talking to a lady who was looking at into the private healthcare or private physician that goes outside of healthcare. And she said, because I went to a list, or I went to my doctor with a list, and she said I had like 9 things on it. And she said, when I got to number 3, the healthcare provider she was seeing, and I don't know if it was a doctor or a nurse practitioner, said, I have to stop you there because I'm not allowed to talk to you about more than 3 things. This is not right. We need to take care of people and be taken care of better than what we are. Right now, with the Affordable Care Act cuts to those the incentives for those premiums, we have people who are going without health care, who are going without medicine, who are going without, and when they go without medicine, it's not just like something they could go without. It is something they need to survive. And I think that's why we are in a situation right now where we've got to make changes.
Immigration can be a heated topic, but it also has real effects on Indiana's workforce, agriculture, and manufacturing. How do you think the country should balance border security, fixing our immigration system, and meeting humanitarian responsibilities, especially with those local impacts in mind?
So I mean, part of my work in the past few decades has been international, and I have interfaced with customs and immigration officers at our borders many times. They are professionals. They do an amazing job. They are personable, and they are needed. I mean, we need that. In 2024, we had a bipartisan bill in Congress in the House for immigration. And it had things like training for Customs and Border Patrol and allowing for criminals, I mean, true criminals, to be prioritized for removal. Um, it kept families together if they were, instead of being separated at the border. It provided pathways for people to, come through with citizenship. That was tanked for political reasons for the election, and it wasn't even hidden. It was right out there in the open. And I think those are the things that we need to remember, that this isn't a game. These are people's lives, and playing games with people's lives is wrong. Um, our current ICE organization that is snatching people off the streets is not necessary. Terrorizing, kidnapping, and killing our own citizens is not necessary. And ICE, as it stands as that organization, needs to be abolished. I think people need to be held responsible for their actions. And I think we need to move forward in a way that this bipartisan bill in 2024 set forth. And I think we missed a really good opportunity there to come together as a country. And we're seeing the problems with that now.
Indiana's abortion restrictions have changed healthcare access for many women across the state. Where do you stand on reproductive rights, and what role do you believe Congress should play when states pass bans that limit medical options for their residents?
So reproductive care is health care, period. Full stop. It's health care. Um, Healthcare, we have privacy laws. Right now, those privacy laws are being pierced. That is unconstitutional and does not reflect those privacy laws that are in place. Rose standards need to be codified, which would override these state bans. Because when we have state bans in some places and not in others, and we essentially have a patchwork of reproductive care for women. That when women need to access reproductive care, they are taking their lives in their own hands to figure out where to go, where's safe, where's not safe. If I go here, is my doctor going to be so afraid of going to jail that I'm going to die or come close to dying or be permanently disfigured because my physician, who has promised in their oath not to do harm, is refusing to treat me because they're afraid of political ramification, jail time, whatever. That's the risk that we're running with our young women today, and not so young women. When the laws were rewritten in Indiana, it was my 53rd birthday, and I was not through that point in life, which men don't want to hear about, which is called menopause. So that was still a risk for me at 53. And that does happen, whether people believe it or not. It really does happen. So we're not just talking about, 16 to 30-year-olds. We're talking about everyone. And the bigger implication is who needs to be making decisions about a woman's body? She and her doctor.
You've built a reputation for showing up and listening, even in places where Democrats don't always go. If elected, how do you plan to stay accountable to voters? What does that look like in practice? Town halls, transparency, campaign finance choices?
All of that. It's no secret that in campaign finance, I am probably the least favorite person as far as fundraising goes across the state, because I just flat out refuse to sit in a closet and call people for money, because I think the more important job, it does take money to run a campaign. I do understand that. I do raise money, but the more important part is getting out to reach people and building networks who can help you reach people. That's a big focus. And I think that's where the focus needs to be. We desperately need campaign finance reform, and I will fight for that because I believe in it wholeheartedly. Um, this position, when I'm elected, this means that I'm accountable to the people who have elected me, whether they voted for me or not. And I work for people. It's the same as when you're a teacher. You have kids that would vote for you and kids that wouldn't if they had to vote on their teachers. You still have to have the best interest of all of them, and take care of all of them, and meet their needs. And this is the same. And I go back to we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. I go back to that because that's the job. And it starts with we the people. And if I could make it end with we the people, I would make it end with we the people. Because to me, that's the job.
You're known for being able to have respectful conversations across political lines. How do you approach bipartisan cooperation? And are there issues where your values are firm enough that compromise just isn't on the table?
So when I was teaching, I had to teach collaboration. I had to teach compromise, and I had to teach conflict resolution with high school students. I learned a lot teaching that. And there are always trade-offs to be made in the larger scheme of things. I was also fortunate enough to be part of two offices on Capitol Hill in the U.S. House, one of which was a woman named Eddie Bernice Johnson, and she was the first female chairwoman of Science-Based Technology Committee. What she taught me was to be intentional at looking at the long range, look down the road. We may have something that's aspirational, um, something that we really want and we really need, but getting there may take incremental steps. And I think that's the best way to approach what's going on right now is moving in incremental steps. There are things that I have hard lines on, and that is people's health care and lives and their human rights. Um, those are non-negotiables because it's just being a good human. And when you put someone's life at risk, that's not having somebody's humanity at your best heart. And so those are where I draw lines in the sand. I think we only get one planet Earth. We've had laws, good laws that protect us and our environment, and those are being rolled back for profits. So that's another hard line because essentially when we put the Earth first, we also put ourselves first. And I think when you only look in the short term, that can be missed.
A lot of rural Hoosiers feel like Washington stopped listening a long time ago. For the folks who have lost faith in politics altogether, what would you say to them? And how would you plan to actually earn their trust, not just their vote?
I think being real and upfront with them, and that's more of what I focus on. And you said it, earning trust. Yes, I'm there to earn votes, but I am there to earn people's trust because they may not vote for me, but I still need them to trust me. Um, how do I do that? I think by being authentic, by being real, um, listening to people. I'm not the expert on so many things, and a lot of things that will come up. I'm not an expert on, so I do have people that I go to and I listen to. I think we have a lot of people in our rural areas that are discounted because they live in rural areas, and I think that's unfortunate because I think there is a lot of knowledge that we need to spread around that is concentrated in our rural areas. Right now, we have data centers putting life at risk in our rural areas. We have 5 data center proposals in the 6th district right now, and I think there are 3 more coming online. They've already defeated 2. I think one has gone through. So when we look at what's happening in our rural areas, we've got in Indiana, Indianapolis is looking at our rural areas like it's a piggy bank. Like they can just put whatever they want there and it doesn't matter. And that's not true because our rural areas in Indiana are sort of like the lungs of our state, and we need to pay close attention to them, make sure that their quality of life is just as high as it is everywhere in our state.
All right, Cindy, we've covered policy, priorities, and the big picture stuff. But here on Hold 'em Accountable, we don't let anybody leave without a little pressure test. So now we're shifting gears. No long answers, no filibusters, no campaign trail politeness. This is the part of the show where we find out what you're willing to fight for and what you're ready to throw out with the political trash. Welcome to Hold 'em or Fold 'em. I will give you a statement and you simply give me a yes, hold 'em, or a no, fold 'em. Let's see where you stand. Federal investment to turn the old auto manufacturing corridor into a clean energy jobs.
Yes.
Expanding child care subsidies so working parents don't have to choose between a paycheck and whether Paw Patrol is babysitting tonight.
Yes.
A $15 federal minimum wage phased in over time tied to inflation.
I will say in Indiana that would work, but it may not work everywhere. So I think on that one we really have to have an eye on what does it cost to live there.
Finally bringing broadband to rural Indiana so folks in Rush County can stop standing on tractors and trying to get 1 bar of service.
Yes.
Codifying Roe v. Wade nationally.
Yes.
A ban on members of Congress trading individual stocks.
100% yes.
A national paid family leave program.
Yes.
Term limits for members of Congress.
Yes, but we also have that through elections. So I think we need to make our elections stronger because I do think there are times where we have someone that we need in office. And if they're being reelected and we have strong elections, I think that is our term limits.
Letting Medicare negotiate drug prices across all medications.
Yes. And universal health care.
Universal background checks for gun purchases.
Yes.
Before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to say a genuine thank you to Cindy, not just for joining us today, but for sticking with us. This conversation took a little patience to get here. Schedule shifted, life happened, and the calendar had other ideas. And through all of it, Cindy stayed committed to showing up and having the conversation anyway. That matters. That says something about seriousness, persistence, and respect for the people watching and listening. Running for office isn't easy. It's demanding, it's personal, and it often means putting yourself under a microscope while still juggling real life. So, whether you agree with Cindy on every issue or not, stepping forward and offering yourself for public service deserves acknowledgement. Cindy, thank you for your time, for your openness, and for being willing to engage honestly. And thank you for choosing to run, because democracy only works when people are willing to raise their hand and say, I'll do the work. To everyone watching, this is exactly why we do this. Conversations, accountability, giving voters the chance to hear directly from the people asking for their trust. So stay informed, ask questions, and as always, hold them accountable.